This is the Hype Squad with Charli McConnell, a podcast where women can be full of themselves and brag about what they're good at. Each week, we're going to bring you conversations covering topics like motherhood, life, relationships, business, and everything in between, because anything is possible with your very own Hype Squad. What's up, ladies? Welcome back to the Hype Squad. I'm Charli McConnell, your host, and today we have Linda Stewart. I'm so excited. So Linda and I are neighbors. We're friends. We're both moms to only girls. We've been married our whole adult life to our husbands. Like, we have so much in common. I don't have a bio necessarily, and that's okay because we're going to dive in. Welcome.
Thank you.
First of all,
Thanks for having me.
I'm like, right before we started recording, I said we need to hurry up and hit record so we can carry on this conversation. So I'm like antsy. So we're going to pick right back up. But I'm really happy you're here. Thank you for stepping out of your comfort zone and doing this with me. It's going to be great.
Literally just step next door.
I mean, like her commute was easy.
Right.
Okay, so the thing we were talking about before we started recording was the work-life balance. Work-life balance is comical because there is no such thing. And I've talked about it with people on here before. And the more you talk about it, the more you can like release the pressure of it for other people listening and for yourself.
Yeah.
So let's start there. Like, talk to me about because we have similar stories. You stayed home with your daughter for a little bit. So walk me through how you realized there is no such thing.
Yeah. Being stay-at-home mom. Yeah. So, and that was very short-lived, but working full-time, I've never not worked since I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, started as a lifeguard. My mom would drop me off at the public school in town, you know? And so after years and years of working and then being a stay-at-home mom and then going back into the workforce, it's like there is no balance, you know? Whether you're a stay-at-home mom or whether you're working, you're balancing something.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really just depending on where you want to be and what you want to do. Like, I was working, you know, full time, and we had Layla, our little one, and Cole, and my husband, got lucky with a promotion at work. He had, I say got lucky, he earned it.
Yeah.
But he got there. He got there. But he got a promotion, and we had her, and things were just, you know, crazy. So we were like, hey, why don't we try this for a little while? Let's
Mm-hmm.
see what this life would be, you know? And so started doing that at the end of, was it the end of May? So she was just fixing to get out for school.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, she's out all day, every day. You got to do the sitter thing. So we're like, okay, this is perfect timing. And it'll be me. I'm the sitter. I'm the mom, you know? And so did that for the full summer before I started talking about another job.
It's like, okay, I tried it.
So
I'm done now. Check out, tap out.
Those things, like, I knew I wasn't retired,
Yeah.
you know? But we're like, let's just see. And honestly, an opportunity popped up to do what I'm doing right now. And so it was one of those, like, I couldn't turn it down. Didn't think it would happen as quick as it did.
Mm-hmm.
But was still staying at home, like vetting out this new position and what I'm doing now for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably about a full at least 6 months that I was staying at home. So, you know, that's a balance in itself. You're at home in your athletic wear all day, you know, running after a toddler and cooking the dinners and feeling all these other things that you feel like you should be doing because you are staying at home, you know? So, you know, that was a balance there. And, you know, my husband travels all the time, so he gets to eat out. And I'm like, all right, it's time to go eat out now. You're home.
To this, you know? So hard.
I know.
Oh my God.
I'm at home all day. I'm ready to go eat out.
Oh my God.
Like, I just want to eat at home. So, like, there's just always some kind of balance that you're going to do. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And I've learned that, and I'm still learning that. But
yeah,
that's one thing that I've, like, figured out. You know, like, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
There is no goal line. Like, there is no, I've arrived, I've figured it out. I know the secret. Like, it's constantly evolving. But I relate to that so hard, Linda. Like, it's not even funny. My period of time was longer, which, yeah, that was very long. It was 2 years. I stayed home with Sailor. And, you know, Colby traveled a lot, right? And part of the reason I stayed home is because I worked in a hospital. I was a nurse, and that schedule, because of how much Colby traveled, did not work for our family. And so, and it was also important for him. He had a mom that stayed at home, and in his mind, he thought, that's what I want for my kids. I grew up very differently.
Right.
But I was like, I'm willing to try it. I mean, how great could it be? I get to be in my pajamas all day, hanging out. It's going to be great. And God love the women who thrive as stay-at-home moms because I'm not one of them. And so I have so much respect for the women who do so well. And for a while, I thought I I had these feelings of failure in a lot of ways of like, why is this not easier? I
Yeah.
love my child. Why does this feel so hard? Am I not a good mom? You know, I think
All the things.
we all do that,
Yes.
whether we stay at home with our kids or not.
Yeah.
But I realized really quickly that I did not like who I was as a stay-at-home mom. Like I was resentful of my husband who got to go and have like Michelin-starred dinners on work trips. And I'm like, don't you dare send me a picture of your
Of you
meal.
whining and
Don't
dining
you
your
dare
clients.
tell me about where you're going. Like, do you know what I had for dinner? Like, I had corn dogs for the 5th night this week. Like,
Because
don't
they
you
were left over
dare.
from my daughter not eating them.
Yeah, yeah. Like
I
they
know.
were cold on her plate, right? And so I became really resentful of him because he got to be this other person at work. And I remember saying to him over the course of those 2 years, like, you get to come home from work. I never leave my job. Like, it's never clocking out. It's never over. The weekend is not a weekend.
Yeah.
It's just the same, right?
Yeah.
And so I very quickly was like, I'm itching to go back to work. I had to find something to do. So I can totally relate to that. So
Now, let me not lie. I do miss the mornings that I don't have to,
yeah,
I didn't have to get up and
that's
put the
true.
makeup on and do the hair. And
Yeah.
I will say I do miss the simplicity.
But I will
of
say
that.
too, like even I think that part of that process, while it is like annoying sometimes, to me, that's part of me being ready for the day.
Yeah.
So I have some
That's who I
clients
am.
I work with who work from home. And I think a lot of people who work from home struggle with that part because they can work in their pajamas all day if they choose to.
Yeah.
And the one thing I have said to them is like kind of the assignment, if you will, of like, let's try doing this is like, I want you at any moment to be ready to walk out the door. All you have to do is put your shoes on. And maybe you already have your shoes on. But whatever that level of getting ready looks like for you that you can't leave the house without doing, I want you to do that before you start working.
Yeah.
So it's not putting makeup on for everybody. It's not curling your hair. It's not wearing a certain outfit. But there is that stage of like, I can't leave the house like this.
Oh, yeah.
So what are you changing into? Wear that all day, right? So you feel ready. And for me, I like to put makeup on. I like to do my hair. That makes me feel ready for the day. But that's not true for everybody.
No.
But if I'm in my like workout clothes with no makeup, I feel like I'm slumming to a degree, which means my mindset is slumming. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So that was really helpful. But I miss those sleep-in
I
mornings.
do. Oh, yeah.
100%.
100%.
Jinx. Okay.
I've been really comfortable, not in a work perspective, but like in a normal like gym or we're just going out for lunch and there's no like real agenda. You will see me and people don't recognize me. Like I look like a different person. I'm like, yeah, I know. I didn't try this morning, but I'm okay with it. This is me. I have no makeup on.
It's like
my
clocking
hair's
in
in a
and
hat.
clocking out, right? It's like being able to separate the two identities. I think is important for a lot of people, and some people don't have that clear of a shift.
Yeah. People like to see the real you too. They're like, oh wait, she is just a normal.
Yes, it makes them feel
She's not done up
better
all the time.
about themselves not being done up all the time. It's relatable and a lot.
And that was hard for me though. Like I wasn't always that way. Like I feel like I had to be like done up 24/7.
Why do you think?
I don't know. I mean,
how'd you shift out of it?
I think I'll be honest with you, having kids,
a daughter.
Yeah.
I think for me, and I'm just going to say this from my own experience, it was having a girl. And I've said this before because I thought she was a boy the whole time I was pregnant. Like, not the whole time. The first part before I found out.
Yeah.
And I was already calling her Mason. We had the name picked out. I'm like, I am having boys. I am a boy mom. Like, this is what I see for myself. Even though I didn't have any like feelings, but I did have one dream about a pink balloon and I like shoved it down so far. I was like, that's not real. That's totally random. So when I found out she was a girl, it was difficult for me just because I was not because I didn't want a girl, but I just in my head thought it was a boy. So it took a little bit. And I remember when she was like 2-ish, we were in Miami on vacation and she was walking ahead of us and we were all in our swimsuits. And I remember getting emotional and looking at Colby and saying, I was meant to have her. Like I was meant to have a girl because what I realized in that moment is I am literally walking down a boardwalk in a 2-piece bikini, which you would not have caught me dead doing before I had her because I was so deeply insecure.
Yep.
But something about having a girl, at least I think in our generation, and in my experience, is I needed to stuff all of my own shit down so that I didn't bleed it onto her.
Correct.
So do you feel like specifically a girl shifted that?
In certain ways, let me tell you something. God knew I needed a girl. I thought the same thing that I was having a boy. Okay.
Are we
Until
the same person?
I feel like we are. We're like distant sisters and we just started figuring this out. But thought we were having a boy, but we did the genetic testing and everything like that. And we opened the envelope. And Cole actually saw it before I did. He was like, I'm like, what am I looking at? I had no idea, And he's like, we're having a girl. I was like, where do you see that? And so
Can you read?
Yeah,
Are you sure?
like, I don't understand. Yeah. And so he even pointed it out for me. And so since then, like everything changed for me. Like I thought it was a boy and I was totally fine with that. But when it was a girl, I was just like, God knew that I needed it. And you know what? If one day it happens and we have another one and, it's a boy or something like that, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But, it's like I was meant to your point, I was meant to have a girl. Like the way that, she just looks at things and the way that she addresses it comes from us. And so I've realized that. And especially in like today's world and stuff like that with, being comfortable in your own skin and stuff, I'm still learning that, but I'm hoping that I am teaching her ways of doing it too.
Well, we are literally growing up with our kids. Like none of us have any idea. Even if you have more children, they're so different. You don't know what you're doing for them.
Gosh,
like
you're starting over.
I'm growing with you. I've never parented a kid like you at this age before. So like no one knows what they're doing. But I do think at least our generation, because that's the only thing I can really like pinpoint and identify with, having a girl has healed so much of my like adolescence and childhood wounds, mainly with like insecurity, body shame, food, stuff like that. And I'm not going to say I'm totally healed, but because I'm trying to present a certain idea to her and mindset to her, I have to fix it for myself first. And what's really interesting is for me, someone, and I was just saying this to a client yesterday. I think every woman has some form of disordered eating. I'm not going to say every woman has a eating disorder, right? Because those have different classifications, but I feel like we all struggle with food, right? Guys too, but women, it's a different scenario. And I think for me, you're never cured. That's the one thing about eating disorders where like other issues that come up for you, like if you were an alcoholic, you could just like take all the alcohol out of your house. Well, you have to eat 3 times a day. So you have to be confronted with it, the struggle that you have all day, every day. But for me, I became so interested in learning about fueling my body, counting macros, protein, all of that stuff. And I was showing her and teaching her at the same time. Whereas the way I grew up was fat free, don't eat, slim fast, like Atkins diet, all this kind of stuff. And now it's like, I'm trying to show her, okay, I'm eating all of this because this is protein. It makes my muscles strong. I'm eating all of this because it's fiber and it makes my stomach feel good. And I'm eating this fat because it's really good. It keeps me full.
Showing her how it fuels her body.
I'm teaching her, right? But I'm also like, I had to learn it before I could teach it.
Right. Yeah.
I just feel like so much of it is because it's a girl. I honestly, I could get on even more of a soapbox.
Right.
But it is a big thing to have girls.
I see what you're saying though. So it's really validating. So during my short stint of being at home, I got really
Your sabbatical.
My little sabbatical, yes.
Yeah.
But I got really into like we've always, tried to stay healthy as far as exercising. We used to run a lot and stuff like that. Well, I shifted because one of my good friends is, Carrie.
Yeah.
She's in charge of the fitness center. But so she kind of got me on this strength training. And I was like, man, like it was really intimidating.
Yeah.
Weightlifting and things like that. I had just never done it before. And got into doing it and I love it. So going back to work-life balance, I'm like, okay, now I don't want to lose it. So trying to find time to keep up with all of that. It's a struggle. But hearing Layla, she's like, we're going to the gym because she'll go to childcare. She's like, we're going to work out. And watching her, she's like, I'm exercising. And she'll like grab a toy.
Oh my God, I love it.
Oh my gosh. So she's watching us. So that has really changed my perspective too. Like they see everything that you do, they take it all in. And so just making sure, not that you're perfect because you're not going to be, but making sure everything that we do, things that we say are validating, they're lifting and all of the things. So that has been huge.
I think,
especially right now at the age, almost 4.
Like, she's such a sponge.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I think too, like showing your kids when you mess up. I've had a lot of moments with Sailor where I have lost my cool. I mean, we all do.
Yep.
Like that's, if you don't, you're lying, right?
Yep.
But I think there have been several moments where I've lost it and I've taken a time out And then I've come in and I've apologized to her and I've said,
100%.
like, this is mommy shouldn't have acted like that. I got overwhelmed. We get overwhelmed sometimes because I feel like to her, I wasn't explained that. I'm not like nothing special about the way I grew up. None
Yeah.
of us, I think that generation thing too.
Yeah.
I think we are probably more inclined to explain stuff like that to our kids.
Mm-hmm.
But like yesterday, she had a tantrum, and I'm like, I get it, girl. I
Yeah.
get it. You're tired. You're hungry. I feel it. But you gotta calm down,
Yeah. We got to
right?
figure it out though.
Like,
Yeah.
go to my bedroom, have your freak out, roll around, scream all you want, get it all out of your system. Because
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I've been there. But then come back when you've chilled,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But something about knowing she has seen me do it, and
Yeah.
I did that. I took a minute, I came back,
Yep.
I calmed down, that she
Yes.
can recreate that. So
Yeah.
there's power in showing them
Oh, yeah.
all the facets.
And I don't know if it was just like a natural thing that I started doing, or if it was like I had like just lost it so bad that I felt so bad. And I was like, I've
Mm-hmm.
got to go apologize to her. Now it's just like a normal thing. Like it's going to happen. We're going to lose our cool. We're going to yell. We're going to do all the things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I go back and I apologize. But let me tell you a funny story. So, to your point of where you're like, just go have it out.
Yeah.
So, we started this thing. We're like, hey, just go walk away. Go take a minute. Like if
Uh-huh.
she's just like melting down or something like that. But it kind of bit us. So, so she's at home with a sitter one day. And so at the end of the day, you know, we download with the sitter, like, how did today go? What she had for
Uh-huh.
lunch and da da da. So she's telling me this story and she's like, yeah, she was like, so we had a moment. And she was like, so I told Layla, I was like, why don't you, you know, take a minute and go walk away. And she looked at the sitter and she was like, you go walk away. She was like, you need to go take a minute. And I was like, oh,
Careful.
it doesn't work that way.
They'll
You
turn
know?
right
Yeah,
back around.
they do. So, you
But it's
know.
cool to know that she's picking up on that
Uh-huh.
and the opportunity to correct it,
Yeah,
right? Is
yeah,
like,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
I'm not freaking out.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
are like
right,
maybe we
exactly.
both walk away at the
Yeah.
same time, go, right? Like
Exactly,
something
yeah.
along those lines. Um,
Oh, so it's just funny, man.
it's such a
It
great
is so
social
funny.
experiment having kids and like it's always something new. I want to go back because you brought up a sitter, and I think
Mhm.
that's something to really kind of highlight is a lot of women struggle with hiring help or asking for help.
Yeah.
What's been your experience with having sitters, finding sitters,
Yeah.
releasing control, like that kind of stuff?
So it was hard in the beginning, very hard. We, especially when she was born, it was like
Mm,
my mom or my mother-in-law.
yeah,
That was it. That was the only two that we trusted. And we had rules around that. Like you got to come to the house and we
yeah.
did moms on call and we were very rigid. Like people were
We
like,
did those books too. Yeah.
yes, people thought we were crazy. And I get it, but
But it
it works.
works. It
It
works.
works.
We might be psycho, but it
We,
works.
mm,
It works.
but it works and we got sleep.
Yeah.
So and now I gift that book to any like friend that I know that's pregnant. I do
Same.
the exact same thing.
Same.
So and I'm like, hey, you don't have to follow it to a T, but it is a guideline
But the
because
more
they don't.
psycho, the
Yeah,
better.
they don't send you home with a book of like, here, this is how much they should be eating.
Yeah.
Anyway, gives you a good outline. But so we slowly started branching out. We found Hannah came to me. She was like out of the blue. I had gotten on. I had exhausted all of my contacts at the time that it was schedules
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And care.com. I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
People were like,
I
okay, you
haven't
got
used
to be
that one.
careful. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I know. I'm going to vet them. They're going to come over. I'm going to meet them and all the
Mm-hmm.
things. Hannah reached out to me. She was like, something in your bio told me to reach out to you.
Mm.
And I was like, Jesus, you were there,
Yeah.
So, but she reached out and we had a conversation and she came over and met us, met Layla, and we took off from there. Her schedule was perfect. She watched her every single day in the afternoon.
Mm.
Like it was perfect. And luckily it's kind of spawned from there. Like she knew a friend that was looking and then all of a sudden schedules opened up.
It's like the babysitters club.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Now we have 3 different sitters a week. They
Mm-hmm.
are the dream team.
Yeah.
And so every single day there's a different person picking
Yeah.
Layla up from school, which I was so nervous about. Because you're like, there's no consistency here.
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing because no one is bored.
It's still
It's fresh.
consistency. It's
It
just
is.
different. Yeah.
It is, we went from Hannah every single day,
Yeah.
the same one picking her up, same routine. I even think for them, it's better. The sitters don't
Mm-hmm.
get bored. They're not playing the exact same games every single time. Every time there's a different story that Layla has to tell them from something else that she's done.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been like magical in a way that I never expected.
It's probably, I mean, it is more stressful for you logistically to make sure everybody's where they need to
It is
be. But I also
exhausting.
could see where it would be a really advantage for Layla.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because she's getting used to 3 different personalities. Like, even with Sailor, like, we all get so stuck in our routine
Yeah.
that we kind of lose sight of other people and how, and like right now, we're going through a transition with sitters, and Sailor is pushing boundaries really hard because it's a huge change in her routine. Whereas if she had already been used, and this is not a new sitter, like she
Yeah.
was used to her, but still, the routine is different.
Yeah.
Layla's getting used to being more adaptable,
She
which
should organize chaos.
well, that's an
She's thriving,
advantage,
let me tell you.
right?
Yeah.
Like that is,
Yeah.
I see that as an advantage, so that's good.
That's the way that I'm taking it. Like, honestly, but, and it is like every single day. I'm like, how was she? Now, I also think we're at, knock on wood, we're at such a good little stage. You know, they quickly will flip that page.
Yeah,
But we are so enjoying it. Like, she's making it easy. So
I love
it's
that.
just, yeah, it could have been better timing.
So, what do you ever struggle with having help or sitters? Like, does that ever make you feel like you're not doing enough,
Oh,
or make you
yeah.
ever question stuff? How do you deal with that?
Yeah. Um, do I? I don't know.
Right?
You know, how do
Same.
you handle that? I mean, yeah, and that goes back to, another piece that I miss from being at home. But to say that this was the opportunity that I took back in January, that was one of the reasons that I was able to take it.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to so many different people in the industry to make sure this is what I want to do because I had my questions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the next thing I want to do, like, I want it to be like real. Like, this is my career now,
Yeah.
and I'm super excited about it, but it needed to fit the mold of my life too.
Mm-hmm.
So the beauty of it is, and I still work on this, I'm still struggling with this. If there's something that Layla has going on, I can be there.
Yeah.
The schedule is
Yeah.
flexible. I get to build my own schedule,
Yeah.
and that was a part of it. So yes, there are sitters there, but if it's the important things, the dance recitals or the dance demos right now, or,
Mm-hmm.
they're dressing up for Halloween at, school or
Yeah.
whatever the event is, I get to be there. And that was
Mm-hmm.
huge for me. And that is the part of it that I'm like, okay, this is okay.
Yeah, for me, I felt like it made my quality time with her
Yeah.
that much more important. Whereas, like, if I knew I was with her every single day and watching all these shows, like, I tended to be a lot more checked out of those moments.
Oh, you are. Yeah.
And
100%.
now, because those moments are not as often,
Mhm. You're more
am
intentional. You're
way more
focused.
present. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Like, I used to like high five Cole when he got home.
yeah,
Like, all right,
yeah,
you're
out.
shift. Yeah, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I
Don't
can't play
talk to
anymore.
me. Don't
Yes.
ask anything.
Yeah.
Mommy is gone.
And now I'm super excited. And she gets thrilled when I get home. I'm like, yes, I've missed you all
See,
day. Like,
okay.
I'm a better mother. Like, I am.
Yes,
I am.
because I feel like pouring into your own cup,
Mhm.
meaning you can pour into everyone else around you. For me, it was the same thing because I felt like I was drowning in my own identity as a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
I wasn't my best self, which
Yeah.
made me not a great partner and not a great mom.
Right.
But opening myself up to this other side of me and being able to like really sit in that identity made
Yeah.
all the other ones feel better because I didn't feel suffocated
Yeah.
from this one not being fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I also I have some clients I work with who have stayed at home with their kids for long periods of time
Yeah.
and then go back to work. So it's a struggle in and of itself to go back into the workplace, but it's like my kids are so used to me picking them up from school and being at every practice and every
Yeah.
game, and all of a sudden I can't go. And the thing I always say to them is see it as an advantage, see it as a learning opportunity for them, because this particular client that I'm talking about specifically, she had boys and girls. And I
Yeah.
said, you're showing your daughters that even though they did this, they can change and they can do something different,
Yeah.
and that they can push their boundaries and step out of their box. But also, this particular client was building a business.
Yeah.
I'm like, how cool is that for your kids to see you building something, right?
Yes.
So instead
100%.
of seeing it as a disadvantage that they're going to miss me and I'm going to ruin them because I'm not there, see it as a good thing that it's not so much that they won't stay attached to you, but they see that life can change.
Yes.
Routines
There's
can
different
change,
seasons
and people have to balance, and I don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to stay home with my kids
Yeah.
to be a good mom. I
Yeah.
can go out and have a job too.
Yeah.
I did
Because I
not.
come from a background. My mom stayed at home with us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't remember those years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's it. And then she went on to work for, oh gosh, I think it was over 20 years after.
How old were you when she went back to work?
I don't even remember. Like, I was young.
Okay, so very young,
because
yeah.
my brother and I we have 4 years between us.
Okay.
And so when she had both of us, she was at home, like to the point of where other people would bring their kids over to her. Because she's at
Okay.
home and she kind of
Yeah.
became like a little, at home daycare. But yeah, so she was at home for a while, but she went back and worked again, like I think it was like 20-ish years. So
So like
it's
your
still
mom was
good.
working for both of us, because
Mhm.
obviously we're the same person,
Yeah.
lost at birth. Um,
How are we
for
just figuring
me,
that out?
I
Okay.
know. For me, it was like my mom always worked. She was a single mom, first of all, and she always was a hustler. And that's what I wanted to do. You
Yeah.
you recreate what you see when your kids on all facets, good or bad. And that particular thing, staying at home, felt like my mom didn't do that,
Mhm.
right? This feels
Mhm.
so foreign. I don't know what this looks like. I didn't grow
Yeah.
up with this type of thing. So it sounds like kind of
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears. I did not think we were taught this much about
I
parenthood, but I
know.
love it.
Hey, let me tell you, it's just number one these days. It
Eat, sleep,
is.
and breathe it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about our marriages because we obviously have that in common too.
Yeah.
You have been with Cole since high school.
Mhm.
So what did you say? 20 years total at
Yeah.
this
So
point?
this past May was 10 years married, 20 years together.
That's
Isn't that crazy? It's crazy when I say it out loud because I do not feel old. I'm
right.
like, wait, I'm not old enough to have, been in a relationship that long.
I said the
But
same
we
thing.
are.
Colby and I have been married for 14, together for 16.
Yeah.
So I met Colby when I was January, it'll be 17. So I'm like, wait, I'm 37. But I met him when I was 20 and I turned 21 like right after we met.
Mhm.
And then we were married by the time I was 22.
Yeah.
And so I obviously not from high school, but I mean, we grew up with our spouses,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Like literally into adulthood together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what do you have any friends that are with their high school sweethearts? Is that something you have in your circle?
Not off the top of my head. There are people that like went to high school together,
Mhm.
but weren't together. You know what I mean? That are now
Yeah.
together, but not that I can think of. We're very few and far
Yeah,
between.
it's not common.
No.
It's definitely not common.
No.
I think that it's such a sweet spot to be in that you met your person so early.
Mm-hmm.
But I think too, and I'm just going to share from my own personal experience, I say to Colby all the time, we're really lucky.
Yes.
And he hates when I say that because
Mm.
he's like, we worked really hard to get here. Like, this is not luck. And I'm like, yeah, yes.
That's not what I meant. Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
like you don't know. Now, granted, you and Cole were together for 10 years before you got married.
Yeah.
Colby and I were together for like 2. And I told him, I'm like, you don't know really when you take this risk of getting married. You hope and you pray that this
Mm-hmm.
is your person and that you're going to make it work and you
Right.
make this commitment, but you don't really know that it's going to work, right? You have no idea who they're going to grow into or who
Mm-hmm.
you're going to grow into. Will you still be compatible?
Yeah.
Like, how much will the world change you? And we have been so lucky
Yeah.
that our path always stayed together. Like we had our more tense times, I guess you could
Oh,
say, but
sure.
none of it was like this isn't going to work, right?
Yeah.
And also, the universe was on our side too. Like we didn't have these huge moments that came up that like pushed us when we were in the early stages of our relationship. Like
Yeah.
those things came much later when we had a great foundation. So for me, like it could have totally blown up in our face,
Yeah.
but it
Mm-hmm.
didn't. So what would you say, like, if someone came to you for relationship advice? Because obviously you've been in a relationship
Yeah.
for a long time.
A little bit.
I would think that that
For a
would be
little while.
something people would come to you. What would you say is like the most important thing
Yeah.
about a good relationship?
Well, for us, I mean, we've grown up as y'all, and you know that, and a lot of our friends around here, and we're very religious.
Yeah.
We are Bible believing, we're Southern, like grown up that way, and
Yeah.
we just are. And that is what our foundation has always been on. Like, even, just getting started when we knew, and I can't even tell you exactly when we knew, but it was probably about in our Atlanta time because we lived in
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta for about 2 years that we were just like, hey, you're like, we are each other's person, and we started
Mm-hmm.
talking about marriage because that's where we got engaged. We were still in Atlanta, but I mean, divorce was off the table for us.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's still like, I don't even know what that is. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so, like, we initially just started on that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And as the world changes and as things change, we have hard conversations. We don't shy
Mm-hmm.
away from those. Like, it's going to get uncomfortable in a conversation, but that's what you do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we grew up, our families knew each other. Our parents grew up together.
Yeah.
We both had siblings that were just, 3 and 4 years ahead of us. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone knew everybody. He was friends with my brother growing
Wow.
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a little weird. you know,
Sorry, bro.
yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, Brad. But no, it was a couple of years after that, everybody started going off to college and started doing their own things. But we have always had this solid foundation. And, not necessarily our parents, so we've learned from some of those things. My mom and dad are divorced. My mom's remarried now, love him to death. It's one of those things, just a timing thing, and it worked out. But, learning from things like that, what not to do.
Yeah.
Things that we did want to do. And then we've created our own path too. So to your point and what Colby says, like we have worked our butts off to get here. Like same, we talk about that because we're proud of us and what we've accomplished in our relationship and, and just our lives in general, where we are, where we came from. And we're just proud of it. But that solid foundation, I mean, we just talked about it when we were young and we've grown into it. To your point, we have literally just every single, day, week, month, year, it changes, but we just stay firm in who we are. It is so comfortable to know that like we're off doing our own things, but like at the end of the day, we're like
your team.
We're a team. Yeah. No matter what happens in the day.
Yeah.
Like we'll get through it,
So
and I know that sounds cheesy. Like I know it does.
It's not. No, I
just like. But like I hate the word lucky to because
it's a level of
here,
content and comfort that only people who are in this type of relationship can really understand. I don't think it's cheesy at all. Maybe to someone who's
even to the point of where you like, am I taking advantage? Like, you know what I mean? Like this is too easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you enjoy those moments because it should be that easy.
Well, and if you could look around and like feel gratitude for like, wow, everything feels really good right now. I'm going to sit in this for a minute.
Right.
I also want to go back to like, Layla's only 4 and you guys have been together for 20 years. So 16 years without a kid. I always joke, I'm like, it's honeymoon stage until you have a kid, right? Like that for us, we were married for 7 years before we had Sailor. That was when everything changed. Like that was the biggest stress, and not in a negative way, but just such a rewrite of what was happening. What was that like?
We were married for 7 years before we had Layla.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Linda.
Oh my gosh.
Linda.
How long have we known each other and we're finding these things out?
We should have done this a long time ago because we're obviously long lost.
We are.
I don't know what it is. Sister or something. Okay. 7 years. But what was it like?
I'll be honest with you, it was wonderful. Yeah. It was just us. We were both working, traveling. That is when we traveled. We did all of our things. And so shifting into having a child, like some people, they get married within the next year or 2 years, they have their first baby, we didn't do that. And so we traveled and enjoyed that. And so when we had her, that made it rough. I was like, hang on, wait, I do remember life before her. It was fun. We enjoyed going and doing and not having to, think about all of the things that come with, trying to travel with a child or just honestly getting out of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just getting out of the house and going to dinner.
Yeah.
So, that was hard. Enjoyed every bit of that. That's where a lot of our memories come from, obviously, but it was tough because you remember it was easy, So relearning. Okay. But now this is life. So now figure it out this way and enjoy it. And so shifting, I may have shared this with you, but like having her, the postpartum for me was that whole first year. Yeah. Oh, it was rough because we had so much time together. And so you're like, hang on, my life just changed forever.
But also you're more set in who you are when you have a kid a little bit later. I think too, like, both could be a negative, right? Like getting married and having a kid immediately, you don't necessarily have a great foundation and then you're throwing a kid into the mix and it's stressful. But also on the other end of that spectrum, having so long with your partner, just the two of you, and now you throw a kid in, you have to get used to not being as available for each other, even if it's just travel or like emotionally, like any sort of attention like that.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, before I had Sailor, I would say, well, what's the best way to do it? You have all this time. And in my head back then, it was because I'm not promised this life after she turns 18. So let me have it now. Also, Colby and I, we just had so much shit happening that throwing a kid in the mix did not make sense.
Yeah.
But so I wanted to do it on the front end and I don't regret it, but I totally relate to what you're saying, which is like, oh God, I tasted all that freedom. I experienced all that and I know what I'm missing. Yeah. I know what I'm missing.
Yeah. So there is no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Earlier or later, there's pros and cons to both.
So how did you know you were ready to have her? Did you guys like start trying and like knew it was time to start having kids?
Funny enough, COVID, during that whole crazy
Really?
life that everyone was living. Yes.
Okay.
So people travels all the time.
Yeah.
And which again led into me staying at home just because the schedule was
Yeah.
insane. And which made it so much easier when he was gone. On
Mm-hmm.
him, on me, everybody. But he is in the long-term care industry.
Mm-hmm.
So their pharmacy, they serve um nursing homes, assisted livings, things like that. Well, that was one of the first things to shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Like their facilities were like, don't even look at us. Like
Yeah.
you're not coming in here.
Yeah.
Don't even get near the building. Understandably so.
Right.
So he was sent home to work for, oh my gosh, Charlie, I think it was like 2 years. What it ended up being him working from home. It was pretty close to a year and a half to 2 years. And so we were in Mexico, and that was one of our last big trips together of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We landed back here. And as soon as we landed, we heard that the Masters was shut down. And we were like, okay, like this is
This is
a big
serious.
deal. Like, this is not just like, a little
Yeah.
the world is changing.
Yeah.
And he had been sent home, and they were like, it's, there's no ending point. Like
Yeah.
it's, and so we were like, okay. And for whatever reason at the time, I was working at Mooresville Club and golf was essential. So we did
Mhm.
not close. So it was just a funny time that we were living
Well,
in.
COVID didn't exist outside,
It didn't.
so you could play golf and be
Right. So
safe,
we were
right?
essential.
Yeah.
Luckily, hey, I was not
I
complaining.
mean, who's to
but-
judge the decision makers?
Right.
But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But
That's a whole other podcast.
regardless,
Yeah.
regardless, yeah.
But so he was sent home. I was still working, but we were both here in town at that
Okay.
point. Like
For the first time ever.
every day,
Yeah.
every night, like we were both at home, no matter what we were doing for the day. So we were like, okay, well, it's kind of now or never. Because honestly, and I'll be honest with you, if that had not happened, I don't know if we were headed down the path of kids.
Yeah.
I did not grow up the little girl that was like on the house and the white picket fence and a baby by the time I'm 27 or 25 or
Same.
whatever it was. Like, just wasn't me.
Mhm.
But so again, things happen the way they're supposed to and in the timing they are. And
Mhm.
we were like, all right, well, let's do it. And well, it happened.
And then you did it, and it worked.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we decided, it was
hook, line, and sinker.
that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my story is a little bit different in that Colby and I said we would wait 5 years,
Mhm.
that we wanted to go out and we wanted to live and travel. We'd wait 5 years and we'd address it. So 5 years came and we were like, nah, we're good. We'll push it down the road,
Yeah, 5
right?
years went by real quick.
So then, like, I know it goes by so fast. We said we would renew our vows every 5 years, and then it was like the next day it was 5 years, and I'm like, no, it's too soon.
Yep,
It's too
yep.
soon.
Mhm.
And now here we are at like 14, and I'm like, still too soon. Like maybe 20. But regardless, so then 6 years, nah, we're good. We're not okay. So then we came up to 7 years, and still like I think it was between 6 and 7. I literally woke up one morning, and I mean, and I say that as like I didn't actually wake up, but it was like something clicked
Okay.
where it was like, oh, it's coming. Like something has shifted overnight where I'm ready,
Like
right?
it's time.
So much so that it was like, get in or get off, buddy, because this ship is taking off, whether you're on board or not, right? And it's comical to say that, but in that moment, I have never felt such a strong calling for anything in my life until then. And I wrote actually a journal to Sailor, which, she'll read at some point, but it was like, I knew you were coming. I couldn't have articulated that at the moment, but it was like, I knew you were coming and
Yeah.
I would have stopped. No one could have stopped me from having
Yeah.
you. And it's funny because obviously I need my husband to have a child, right? But I'm like, this is what's happening. Okay. And we struggled. That was hard because for the first time, he's like, you're not,
We're on
this
two different
isn't-
pages
we're
here.
not communicating well about
Mhm.
this. Like, I don't know that I'm ready. And I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Mhm.
Right. And so it took a little while for
Mhm.
him to like get on board. And it was a stressor for us.
Sure.
Because not only was I ready, but it's a process. You got to come
Yeah.
off birth control and your cycle's got to get back right. And then, what if I can't get pregnant right away? And so it was a struggle, and he and I butted heads because I was so like tunnel
Yeah.
vision that I
Mhm.
couldn't even hear him.
Yeah.
Right. And so in a lot of ways, I wish I would have handled that differently, but you know what you know and you
Yeah.
do what you can at the time that you
That's right.
do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he was really gracious about it. And he just kept saying, like, I need to know that like this is real, that you're not just on a and I'm like, you know me. I don't get on tangents. Like I know this is out of character,
Yeah.
but I'm ready,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? And then came off
Maternal
birth
vibe kept
control.
kicking in
Right.
full
Like, oh my
swing.
God.
Yeah.
Right. And then got off birth control, didn't get pregnant right away. So then that started a whole nother thing that caused a lot of stress. And Colby's like, if this is what it takes to have a kid, I don't know that I want this right now because if you're trying to get pregnant, anyone who's listening to this can relate. Like, if it doesn't happen right away, it consumes you, no matter what degree
Yes.
it gets to,
Yeah.
whether it takes you 2 months to get pregnant or 2 years to get pregnant. It's all you think about.
Yeah.
And then sex becomes a chore, ovulation, like all of this stuff. And
Everything's scheduled.
it becomes
Mm-hmm.
like work.
Yeah.
And his thing was like, this feels like too much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we sure? And then you do not ask a woman who's ready to have a baby that, because it's like, you're not supporting me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
but fast forward, we got pregnant and everything was great and all of that stuff. And I remember saying to myself, because I do say this like out loud, that we are a one and done family for a lot of reasons,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, but one of the things I said to myself when I started struggling with do we have another kid or not was, if I don't feel that same calling, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to do it because I feel like she's owed a sibling
Yeah.
or her life will be better with a sibling. Who's to say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, I don't know that I'm doing it because I'm meant to do it or because everyone is around me is like putting pressure on me
Yeah. And
potentially.
asking and yeah.
And then when she got diagnosed with epilepsy, it was like, no question about it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no more.
Yeah.
Um,
That's tough.
so it's and just having an only child, right, is its
Mm-hmm.
own struggle,
Yeah.
and you need to entertain them, and
Yeah.
it's it's different. But I do feel like that decision to start having kids, if you are even able to make the decision, some
Right.
people it just happens. Um, it's it's a big moment
Mm-hmm.
in your life for the man too, but really
Yeah.
for the woman, if you either have that maternal calling or schedules line up
Yeah.
and it
Right.
works that way,
Right.
it changes everything.
Yeah. I think that's maybe why, like, we talk about a second one. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
We've talked one and done. We've talked, well, what if we're not.
Yeah.
But like, I've never had that calling like you have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A
And
lot of
so,
people
like, and you
don't.
did the first thing.
That's not
Yeah.
normal.
Right. Well, but a lot of people
It's
do,
not common, I should say.
yeah. But a lot of people, want to be moms. And, now that we're there, now that I am a mom, I'm like, man, this is amazing.
Yeah.
What would it be like with two?
Right.
But it's one of those things like, I just never had that, like, okay, now is the moment. I was like, well, it'll take a pandemic for me to have that
Right.
moment.
Don't
You know
let
what I
that
mean?
happen
Yeah, I
again.
do not
I
want
don't
another
need that for
pandemic
another
to have another
kid.
child. No,
Yeah.
no, no, no. But you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't know. I don't
I
know.
think too, like just being open ended to it, like being aware enough to outside influences that may put pressure, whether they realize it or not, on you. For me, I felt a lot of that. But also in my mind, the nuclear family that I had pictured had multiple kids and
Mhm.
siblings and like, 2 or 3 years apart, that like ideal thing. And then I started to question that. And who's to say like what made me question that at the time? Was
Yeah.
it people around me? And also who's to say like what gave me this calling? Was it people around me and my circumstances? Who knows? But I started to think like and what's interesting is Colby and I both have siblings, but he was the oldest by like 8 years before his siblings were born. And I'm the youngest by at least 9 years. So in our own rights, we're kind of only children,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so I do think some of that where I like gave myself permission was like, it's not terrible being an only child, right?
Yeah.
There's still so much extended family, cousins and
Yeah.
friends, and like it doesn't mean it's going to make or break her. But I struggled a lot with it,
Yeah.
a lot with it. And it's funny because right when we were about to start trying is when she was diagnosed.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
it was like, oh, the universe is like,
Yeah.
I definitely can't move forward with this right
Yeah.
now. So it's just like letting everything kind of happen
Yeah.
and not telling yourself it needs to be one way or another.
Right.
And either it'll happen as like a surprise, or you guys will just wake up one day and be like, yeah, we want it. Or like Layla will ask for a sibling or something, right? Sailor's never asked for a sibling. She is 7.
I mean, Layla has said, I don't know if she knows what she's saying.
Sailor
You know
will
what I mean?
say like her friends are her sisters. She calls our dog and our cat her sister and brother. Like she
Okay.
makes like references like that, but never. Morgan was on here talking about her only child and her daughter asked for siblings. And I'm like, Sailor has never asked. But also she is so I don't want to use the term Velcro, but she's very attached to me. And like if she has to share my
Yeah,
attention,
she's like, I'm not giving you up for
I
a
say all the
sibling.
time that like my
Yeah.
husband and my daughter are both like Aries and have a lot of the same characteristics, and they both like vie for my attention, which is not abnormal. But I'm like, who do I go to first? Like, him or her? And they both, and so I'm like, if I had another child, God forbid it's an Aries, right? Because then I just have 3 ways
I
that
was
I
about to
could
say,
split.
maybe it mixes all that up for
Yeah,
better.
but chaos
But
might
who knows?
ensue.
Yeah.
Like, but again, you
Be
never
rolling the
know.
dice. Yeah.
You never know.
Exactly.
So, okay, I
That's
want to
funny.
shift gears because I want to talk
Okay.
about what you're doing for work. And one of the things when we first talked about you coming on here, was not only talking about this big transition in your career, but how you were having to step so incredibly far out of your comfort zone, and that you were just like, I'm scared shitless, but I'm doing
But
it.
I'm gonna do it.
So I want you, like, whatever you want to share about it, tell me. Obviously you were in a job for a long time. You're really comfortable. I know that much about you. And then, you started making transitions, and you mentioned that it worked well for your having a child and being a mom. Talk to me about like how uncomfortable it has been and how you've had to push yourself.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people get stuck in just being in this job for so long. Like I was in that job for almost 9 years. Loved it. Like absolutely loved it. But you get to a point to where you feel like you've done all that you can do in that position, and I felt so good about where I left it and things that I was able to, help accomplish there and things like that. I still love it. I'm out there all the time, but it was time for me to move on, and it was the timing of it. So I felt like I had left my mark there. There was nowhere else to go, nothing else to be done there, for me at that time in that position. And so literally a girlfriend of mine called me out of the blue from Atlanta. She's an only child. She is amazing. She's a VP of her department. Like, she's awesome. Her best friend was her cousin and still is growing up. So she's amazing. But she called me out of the blue. So this was post-COVID. And she was like, hey, in the new world that we're all living in, I have a completely remote position.
Yeah.
And we've kept up since we met when we lived in Atlanta. So, gosh, over 10 years ago. She was in our wedding. Like, we've just stayed friends.
Yeah.
And so she thought about me. And so went to work from home. I was like, okay, great. We can do the work-life balance. I'll be at home, still have a sitter, because you cannot work from home and have a
No.
It's not possible.
It is not.
No.
Do not get it twisted.
Nope. And so did that whole thing, but me and my personality, I'm way too I need people in my life. I don't like being the center of attention, but I'm more of an extrovert than introvert. 100%.
Well, that's how you charge. Yeah.
And so I was missing people. Like, I was still doing Zoom calls and talking to people. I had clients in the UK. Like, I got to get out, and do things, but it was right there in your, screen.
I get it.
And so I was like, okay, wait, I need like interaction again. I need to like, get to the coffee shop or go have lunch or be in the office setting again. So I was missing that. But before I did that, that's when I was, hey, everything happen. And we were like, okay, I'm not loving the job that I was doing, the remote position. So that's when I did the stay at home. We were like, okay, let's just try this for a little while, And again, going into the position I'm in now, didn't realize it would come so quickly, but it did. And so did my due diligence, vetted it out, and asked all the things. So wealth management. So I'm a financial advisor, right? And but it was brought to me by someone who's been in the industry for, I think he's going on like 12 years, something like that. And so he's very well established. He's been doing it for a long time. And he's also a male. And so I was like, okay, who are some females that I can talk to? Like,
let me more relatable.
Yeah. So, I mean, I even drove like to Birmingham to talk to someone and just kind of get her perspective.
Yeah,
and,
that's a good idea.
Yeah. And another one came here to Auburn, and I met with her and talked to her. And so talked to several of them before I finally made the decision. But hearing them talk, and one even brought up like, hey, you probably haven't asked this question, but just in case you're wondering, like, I've had 2 babies since I've been here. It's amazing. Like, she brought that up,
I love
and I'm
that.
like, it's one of those questions you don't want to talk about, but you're curious,
But
but
so good to know.
so good to know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, did all of that, went through the interview process and started in January. So you start with training. You start with, hey,
School.
yeah, before they're even like, hey, let's continue this. Hey, here is all of your online resources. Here's the book. Here are the practice tests. Here's all of the things. You've got to get your license now. This is not something that I had, didn't go to school for it.
Like
But
real estate, maybe like
yeah,
something comparable. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, you've got to be licensed in order to
Mm-hmm.
do your job. And so, the company does all of that for you, though. They provide you all the resources and all of the things. They're just like, just study.
Yeah.
Just study. And so that was my full-time job for a while, was just studying and passing. So I had 4 total exams that I had to pass. And once you do that, you feel a huge relief.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. You're like, okay, wait, I can do this,
Yeah.
and you start, it's one of those things too. You're like, I don't want to tell anyone because you're scared of failure. I'm like, I'm not going to tell anyone because I don't want to fail.
I get that.
But then you're also
Yeah.
like, I want to tell people so that I'm held accountable so that I don't fail. So you find
Yeah.
this like, I'm going to tell people so that I'm holding myself accountable. Like people are relying on me to do this and they know what I'm doing. I don't want to tell them that I have failed,
Right.
And so,
Accountability.
yeah, exactly. And so got through all of that and you go to this thing called Launch Your Practice. And from there, you're finally able to tell people, I am a financial advisor, like title and everything. Everything
Wow.
is so regulated that you can't say any of that until you get to a certain point.
Wow.
So when you get there, it is like the celebration day, and you're
Sure.
there with all of these other people that are going through the exact same thing that you are throughout the country. So it was really neat. You're seeing
That's
all these
cool.
people through Zooms and stuff like that, and then you finally get to meet them in person. But now it is like, okay, hit the ground running. Now build your business.
Here's your license.
Here
Go
you
make
go.
money.
Exactly. Go meet people and do all the things.
Which is very vulnerable
Very
and
much so.
confronting.
Yes. And it's one of those things like, yeah, you have your network and you have your people, but like you're not that person that's going to go and like ask friends and things like that. Like I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And that's also not the relationship that I want to have with people, So, in order to do that, and that's what you and I have talked about, talk about putting yourself out there, that door knocking life.
Okay, let's just take a moment of silence for the fact that you are knocking on doors.
Strangers.
How, oh my God. I tried to do it one time. I worked for a bank and they
Did you
wanted
really?
me to send, like, put flyers out. And I would literally be like, no, it was raining. Nobody was home. Or I put them in their mailbox. That I put them on their door. Like, it was terrifying.
I feel like anything than talking to someone.
So how long did it take you to like not be super anxious and scared or uncomfortable?
Just as of recent. Like it takes a minute.
Yeah.
And it's probably just person to person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For everyone, it's different. For me, this was such a different, like, what is that? I have to do what?
Yeah.
And not that you have to. I mean, just they don't make you.
Yeah.
But it's like you build your business how you want to.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not one of those that's gonna like kill all of my friends and just be like, hey,
Yeah.
and just bug them. And so I was like, you know what? I'm doing this different. And that means, hey, I'm gonna go meet new people that I don't know. And can I be honest with you? It is not that bad.
Yeah.
Like you would have talked to me 6 months ago, I wouldn't have said that. I'd be like, I'm sorry, you want me to do what? This is how you actually do that?
No, thank you.
No,
next.
I'm good. I'm
Next.
good.
Yeah.
But
I'll cold call for the rest of my life, but I'm not knocking on doors. Yeah.
Yes. And that was even intimidating to me. I'm like, wait, they don't know that I'm calling. They don't know me.
Like they didn't consent to this phone call and I'm asking them. Yeah.
So yeah, like they have no idea that I'm knocking on their door. And so it is so funny though, because first off, they think you're selling something and not selling anything. So that's beneficial. Second off, because of the time that we're in right now, I'm not a politician. And so it's actually really
refreshing.
Funny. Yes, it is refreshing to have someone knock at your door and not be those two. And so it's funny that like I start a lot of my conversations like that and they get such a giggle.
How do you start it? Give me your intro.
Yeah, you're like knocking and some people like open it and some people are a little hesitant. And
I'd be hesitant. I'd
yeah,
be like,
like
hello.
hello. And so it's so funny. Like I'll talk to her and I'm like, hey, I'm like, my name's Linda. I was like, I promise I'm not selling anything and I'm not a politician. And literally most of them are going,
Oh gosh.
okay, great.
Okay.
I'm like, I get those things out of the way. And then
Wow.
it just opens up to a conversation. And let me tell you, genuinely people are very nice, whether they want to have a, a 5-second conversation, or I have stood on someone's front porch and had a 45-minute conversation.
Wow.
So you never really know what you're getting into because they don't know that you're coming, but man, it's cool.
What are
Like
you
it really
bringing with
is.
you? Like, are you giving them a card or a flyer, or like,
Yeah.
what's the follow-up plan?
It's really just my information right now.
Like, hey, call me if you're interested, or do
Or
you ask for, hey, can I call
yeah,
you?
yeah,
Okay.
both. Depending on how the conversation goes. A lot of people are working with financial advisors. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people aren't. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't know they could be or should be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on how the conversation goes. It's how like I kind of veer it, and things that I say and stuff like that. And
So,
that is something that I have critiqued
oh, I'm
kind of
sure.
as I go,
I'm sure. But I also,
So
okay, so some of the things we've talked about on like side conversations, obviously the safety of it.
yeah,
And without even bringing that up, because that's a whole nother conversation.
sure.
I think obviously everything is scary until you do it because you've never done it before.
100%.
Everything seems hard
Yep.
and stressful and nervous. Like you were even nervous to do this
Yeah.
because you've never done it before.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but you have to push through that.
Yeah.
Right. And once you push through that, it's always easier on the other side because it
Yeah.
didn't kill you. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
100%.
And it worked, right?
And
Like
it
the first
worked.
person who actually called you or like made an appointment, you're like, oh my God, I'm onto something,
Well,
right?
it's validating.
But
Yeah.
also, like, knowing you, you're an extrovert, you're comfortable around people,
Yeah.
like, you have a approachable, I'm trying to think of, like, how I would describe it, like, everyone and I've seen this at the club,
Yeah.
right? Even though you worked there for so long, like, you're
Yeah.
friends with everybody, everyone knows you, and, like, I'm like, "Linda is the club's celebrity, like, everyone's gonna come talk to
Cole
you if
always
she's
joke
at
that
a
I'm going to be mayor
table."
one day.
But I do think that, like, people resonate with you
Yeah.
and you connect to them, and so that is, like, a superpower of yours,
Yeah.
and to
And you take it, I mean, you use it to your advantage, right? With
100%.
strangers, especially. I can build a relationship with a wall. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
girl.
And so you use those things, but I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like hearing the different backgrounds and like where people have come from and where they are and things that they've
Connection.
done and their
Yeah.
accomplishments. And it is very interesting to hear
Mm.
where people have come from and how they've gotten to where they are. It's really neat because it takes you out of your little bubble,
Mhm.
of things that the expectations of, hey, you do A, B, and C and you get to X, Y, and Z, but people do it differently. There's not one direct route. It's cool
Yeah.
to hear how people
I mean, can you
do what they do.
imagine, and I wanna highlight this for a second because I feel like a lot of people who might be listening to this or just in general
Yeah.
are in a season in their life where they're like, I want more or I
Mhm.
want something different, but I'm so comfortable and this is fine. And I always make this statement that like if you're the smartest person in the room, you were in the wrong room. Like
100%.
you
Yep.
need you're not going to grow if you're already like
Yep.
ahead of the class,
Yep.
right? You need to go somewhere that challenges you. And I do think, for your situation, you could have been like, "No, I'm good. I'm comfortable here," and
100%.
not pushed yourself or not been given
Mhm.
the opportunities. And I think that's the difference, right? Is like
Mhm.
going out of your comfort zone and doing
Yeah.
something you're scared of. So I can't even imagine what it would have been like if you hadn't have done that.
Yeah.
But if you had to go back and like convince, like, did you feel like you needed to convince yourself to leave or was it an easy decision?
I think by the time I had gotten to where I was and having Layla, I think I was just ready. Like
Mm,
it was, you know what I mean? Like it was sad. Like obviously they're like family to me and still are, but it was sad because you felt like you were losing one part of you,
yeah.
literally your identity,
Yeah.
and figuring out that new one. I thrive though in uncomfortable situations and putting myself out there. Like
Yeah.
even Cole has always like complimented me on that
Mm,
because you grow from it so much. And to your
mm.
point, I can't learn anything that I don't know if I don't try.
Girl, we are
And we are.
related.
I'm telling you, but like it makes me a better person the more and more I do
I
it.
I love that, and I also I like to be intimidated.
Yeah.
Like I I want to be around people that intimidate me because it
Yeah.
means I have something to learn
For
from
those that
them.
think you can't do it.
For their highlight,
I
yeah,
do like to prove that
I
I am
love
smarter than I
that.
think you think I am.
I
Yeah.
love proving people wrong, but
Hmm.
also I like being around people that have something I want to like pull from.
Mhm.
Like, so if they're intimidating or if I feel any sort of like jealousy, like something about what I'm seeing in them, I feel like I'm short of, right? That
Okay.
I'm not, I don't have.
Yeah.
And it's like I can learn from that. I
Yeah.
can pick from that. I can
Yeah.
grow from that. And I think it's just a huge testament of like where you've come and how far you have ahead of yourself.
Mm.
And I really wanted to highlight that because that's such a big deal.
Thank you.
And I think too, it builds your confidence. It makes you feel good. It
Mhm.
also it changes the way you talk to people around you,
Yep.
like pushing other people to do stuff. And
Yeah.
also you kind of motivate people around you
I
to
hope
do other
so.
stuff,
Like, I
right?
really hope so. Yeah.
Oh,
That was another
yeah.
thing. I wanted to be in a position to where I could touch people and
Mhm.
help them. Like
Mhm.
I'm not going to be a nurse, or
Mhm.
I'm not a doctor. Like I know there are things that I will not be one day,
Yeah.
But if there was another, position that I could take that could touch people and reach people in different ways and actually feel like I'm benefiting them in their life, then I wanted to do it. And that's what this allows me to do.
I feel like that about being a coach because
Oh,
there
I'm
the
sure.
level of gratification you
Yeah.
get when you see someone like change or shift because you
Yes.
influenced them or you helped them or you supported them
Yeah.
or whatever is like nothing else.
No.
And I know you feel that even in your position,
Yes.
because advising is coaching,
Yeah.
right?
Seeing, client, like, I've had both, that sit there and they're like, okay, well, this is because I help people. Where are you
Mm-hmm.
right now? Where do you want to
Mm-hmm.
be?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help get you there?
Yeah.
And to see people on both ends of the spectrum, like, here's where we are, this is where we want to be. And I'm like, okay, well, in order to do that, we've got to do this.
Yeah.
Or the ones who are like, hey, this is where we are and we don't think we're going to make it there. And I'm like, ooh, but you are. Like
You
I see
can.
both. Yeah,
Yeah. You're
exactly. I'm like, oh,
motivating
you better
them
than you
and
think you are.
you're building them up.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So it's so validating just to see their shoulders just, ooh, okay, like I'm good. And to help with that, like it's
Yeah.
such a rewarding position. Like it is.
I love this for you.
It's awesome.
I do. I love it. I love it. And obviously, I'm going to put all the ways to like find you if they
Yeah,
want to work with you and all
yeah,
the details
that'd
in
be
the show notes.
awesome.
But this has been so fun.
So good.
Okay, Linda, I did not prep you for this before you came
Oh,
in,
shoot.
and I'm going to apologize ahead of time.
Okay.
But so called
Can
it
we
the
cut?
Hype
Can we cut?
Squad.
No.
I know, right? Cut,
Yeah,
cut,
cut. We're
wait,
done.
not prepped. But to be fair, you weren't prepped for any of that conversation,
This
so
is
that's
true.
good
This
too.
was not scripted.
So I named the podcast the Hype Squad
Okay.
because I have this assignment that I give to clients, and I call it the Hype List. And I don't give it to everybody, but it's a pretty common thing I give across the board, which
Okay.
is listing all of achievements and obstacles you've overcome to get where you are.
Okay.
Because I do feel like we don't talk about that enough. And the idea behind it is I want you to brag about yourself and I want you to be full of yourself because everyone has that reaction, which
Mhm.
is no. So I ask everyone that comes on to share something from their hype list, and it can be relevant to what we're talking about now or just something random. But I want you to share something that you want to brag about, that you want to be full of yourself. It's an achievement or an obstacle that you overcame that you want to be hyped about.
Oof. I mean, most recent is going to be my new job. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And getting through all of the license, getting through all of the training and door knocking. I mean, that was like, you just have to rip the band-aid. You get out of the car. You have to get out of the car. And I was so proud of myself for
Yeah.
getting out of the car,
Yeah.
And that's one of the most recent, that I have. But honestly, just putting myself out there constantly and
Mm-hmm.
being okay with change. That is the one thing I think in my life that has literally shaped me to who I
Mm-hmm.
am.
Yeah.
Like you have to get out of your comfort zone. And I've always been okay with that. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay with the awkward, the uncomfortable. It's not always fun, but seeing who you are on the other side makes every bit of it worth it. And like that is the one thing about myself that I want to brag about. That I just
I
because
love it.
I hate bragging about myself. Good Lord.
Everyone does,
I know I hate it.
which is why I'm forcing you to do it.
I know, but that is the one thing just in life. And, I feel like I'm a pusher for myself, but also some people around me too. And when you see your work of pushing others, because you see where their potential, where they could be and things like that, and then you see the outcome, you're like, told you so. Like,
Yeah.
it's not always fun. It's uncomfortable, but it's worth it. It is.
So let's take a moment and
Okay.
let's recognize how good it feels to talk highly about ourselves.
Mm-hmm. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it.
When you're saying it. Maybe not now because you're like buyer's remorse, like, oh, what did I say out loud? But
Yeah,
while you were talking, I could see it on your face and hear it in your voice that you're proud of that.
I am.
And so I
I really
think,
am.
it's so normal for us to talk crap about ourselves and to break, because we don't want anyone to like judge us or think we're being full of ourselves. Like it's a bad thing. But I also
like I
think
am not an arrogant person. I
the
promise.
more you do, but see, like even the fact that you have to say that, it's like, it's not arrogance.
I know.
It's confidence, right?
Yeah.
It's knowing yourself well enough to not be afraid to say the stuff you're good at.
Mm-hmm.
But also the more you do it, the more you normalize it for the people around you, because inevitably there's going to be somebody that's going to be like, you're so full of yourself. Yes, I am. And you should be too, right? And I think that's the thing I'm trying to get across here is like, we all have so much to celebrate and be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're constantly telling ourselves that we're not good enough, then we believe that.
Yeah.
We do.
No, you're absolutely right.
So
there's some of the stuff that like we, are told and go through every single day. Like, what are 3 things that you've accomplished and you're proud of every single day? And I will be honest with you, I don't have an answer for that all the time. But I've tried to start thinking about it that way, because you can only do so much. You're only responsible for a portion, especially in what we do, for a portion of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always judge the outcome, but have you put in the work? And if so, then be proud of that. You can't make someone pick up the phone. You can't make someone answer their door. But did you try?
I think the same thing is true about gratitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like when I started really heavily practicing gratitude, it's because it felt like everything was turning to shit around me. My kid was sick. There was all kinds of stuff happening. And I realized that even though that's the only thing I saw, there was still so much other good stuff that I was missing. And if I didn't pay attention to that, but even like, what did I accomplish today? Well, I did not quit after the 20th call that no one answered or said anything.
Yeah.
That's an accomplishment.
100%.
Or I kept a smile on my
your
face.
mindset to know that that's an accomplishment, that has been game changer.
But there's always something there.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes you're looking at the picture, looking for like the really big pivotal things. But if you start to acknowledge the small things that you can consider accomplishments, exactly.
Did you go to the gym today? Did you do whatever? It can be the little things. And that's something that I had to learn. Mm-hmm. And I'm still learning, I'm still evolving. But it's so helpful when you can get to that point.
Oh my God.
So, I know.
Linda.
I know.
So
this was really fun.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for getting hyped with us. Be kind to yourselves today and every day. Thank you for being here, Linda. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh my God.